Welcome back to the programme. It's 10:30 p.m. here in Paris. Let's remind you of our headlines. Donald Trump officially recognises Jerusalem as Israel's capital, to the condemnation of leaders from across the world and throwing an already unstable region into turmoil. Emmanuel Macron stops short of apologising for French actions during Algeria's independence war while on a trip designed to bring the two countries closer together. And much more than a hashtag, the most influential person of 2017, according to Time magazine, is unveiled. The beginning of a new approach to the conflict between Israel and the Palestinians. That's how Donald Trump has described his announcement to officially recognise Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. But European and Arab leaders don't see it that way. Emmanuel Macron has called the decision regrettable, and leaders across the world have warned that it could prompt chaos in an already turbulent region. The announcement also confirms Trump's intention to move the US embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. Wasim Cornet has this roundup of Trump's speech.
A long-awaited speech which upends decades of U.S. foreign policy. Donald Trump, citing the lack of progress in the peace process, officially recognized Jerusalem as the capital of Israel.
It would be folly to assume that repeating the exact same formula would now produce a different or better result. Therefore, I have determined that it is time to officially recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel.
Fulfilling one of his campaign promises, Trump also kicked off the process of relocating the U.S. embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem.
This will immediately begin the process of hiring architects, engineers, and planners so that a new embassy, when completed, will be a magnificent tribute to peace.
In spite of the potentially serious fallout, Trump reiterated his desire to achieve peace in the region.
The United States remains deeply committed to helping facilitate a peace agreement that is acceptable to both sides. Without question, Jerusalem is one of the most sensitive issues in those talks. The United States would support a two-state solution if agreed to by both sides.
Trump's decision came despite having been warned by dozens of countries of grave consequences for the stability of the region and for the future of peace talks. Whether talks are even possible after today's decision, though, is anyone's guess.
Well, reactions have been coming in from around the world. Israel's Prime Minister was in the minority, voicing support for Trump's decision.
The President's decision is an important step towards peace, for there is no peace that doesn't include Jerusalem as the capital of the State of Israel. I call on all countries that seek peace to join the United States in recognizing Jerusalem as Israel's capital and to move their embassies here.
Meanwhile, the Palestinian president expressed his disappointment at Trump's announcement.
Palestine is experiencing an historic moment following the statements by the US administration regarding Jerusalem. With the statement, the US administration has chosen to go against all the international and bilateral agreements and has chosen to ignore the international consensus of world leaders, religious leaders and regional organizations over the recent days regarding Jerusalem.
Well, for more on this, let's bring in Lisa Goldman. She's the New America Foundation's Israel-Palestine analyst and has been writing from the region for more than 10 years. Lisa, thank you for joining us. What do you make of Trump's announcement today?
Well, it was very much, there are quite a few ways of looking at it. I would say off the top, it's very much in line with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's rhetoric on the issue. I think that also you have to look at it from the perspective of what it means in practice and what it means in theory. So what it means in practice is not a lot will change on the ground. The embassy might or might not be moved in a few years. The peace process has been frozen since 2001, pretty much. But what it does say, but symbolically, this is very important. What it says is that, first of all, as my colleague at 972 magazine, Noam Shezaf, has written today, it says that for the right wing, it's a symbol of facts on the ground being more effective than diplomacy. And it also symbolizes to the Palestinians that the Americans are overtly on the side of the Israelis. And so what it means is that the Palestinians have even less leverage than they had previously when it comes to negotiating on the same level as the Israelis.
You mentioned it there, you touched on it there in terms of leveraging. This decision by Trump, it's a huge boost for Israel in the negotiations. Do you think we're going to see, and perhaps we've already seen,
Yes.
an increased rhetoric from Netanyahu and a strength from Netanyahu that he didn't necessarily have before?
Netanyahu has been on very strong footing for many years now. I don't think that really changes a lot in terms of negotiations because there haven't been negotiations for years. But what Trump's statement does do is really shore up Netanyahu's standing with his base. And Netanyahu's base, as I've written several times, is very similar in its makeup and worldview as Trump's base. That is, they're reactionary, very right-wing, and populist. So, what Netanyahu has done is said to his base, look, the president of the United States is on my side. He agrees with what I've been saying to you for years, which is that Jerusalem is our undivided capital. The Palestinians can't have it. There's not going to be any negotiations over dividing Jerusalem ever, and the president has my back. So what that does for Netanyahu is give him a ton of domestic strength. And it also gives Trump quite a lot of domestic strength with his base. As you probably know, and as your viewers probably know, a significant portion of Trump's political power is derived from the evangelical Christians the right-wing evangelical Christians in the United States, who are Zionists, Zionists of a very bizarre kind because their faith is based on an eschatological belief that the second coming of Christ will occur after Armageddon, which means the destruction of the state of Israel. But for Trump's purpose, the nature of their belief doesn't really matter, nor does it matter for Netanyahu. What does matter is that Trump has shown to his base that he keeps his promises. One of his campaign promises was that he would move the embassy to Jerusalem. By the way, every U.S. president since Jimmy Carter has made that promise and then reneged, which is why no one really took Trump seriously. So what Trump has done with an announcement that might or might come to pass about moving the embassy, he's vaguely said in a few years, what Trump has done is effectively told his base, you see, unlike previous presidents, when I say something, I do it. And that's a very, very effective sort of power-building measure with a populist leader like Trump and with a populist leader like Netanyahu.
Despite everything that he said today, Trump says he still wants to bring peace to the Middle East. He said he'll support a two-state solution. But he didn't say, he stopped short of saying that he would broker that two-state solution. Do you think it would be possible for a US president who had recognised Jerusalem as Israel's capital to then go ahead and broker a two-state solution? Or do you think that's too far-fetched?
At this point, to be really frank, I mean, the Americans have been pretty much taking the Israeli side in negotiations for a very, very long time. And the Palestinians have said that many times. Whether or not what could the Palestinians possibly say to President Trump if he were to say, well, I'm putting together a delegation to come over and broker a peace deal between you and the Israelis? If the Palestinians were to say, well, no, we're not going to sit at the same table with the Israelis and the Americans because the Americans have said they're not on our side by declaring Jerusalem Israel's capital and not the Palestinians, well, then Trump and Netanyahu can turn around and say, look at those Palestinians. They're so recalcitrant. They refuse to sit at the same table with us. Here we came to them and said, we want to talk about a two-state solution. Let's sit at the table. And the Palestinians said, no, well, we wash our hands of the matter. We've offered them a solution. They've said no, so we're turning our backs. So the Palestinians are really in a very difficult position right now. They really, as I said at the beginning of this set, they don't have much leverage.
Lisa Goldman, great to have your analysis. Lisa Goldman there from the New America Foundation. France's president has urged young Algerians not to dwell on past crimes committed during Algeria's independence war. Emmanuel Macron stopped short of apologising for what, during his campaign, he had called crimes against humanity committed by the French. Macron was meeting Algeria's president in efforts to bolster economic ties.
I've come to open a new page, and especially with the new Algerian generation that must be seeing France differently, and that must also see the promises of their own country, and go conquer a future that's not all rosy. We have challenges, we know, that at times are complex, but that can be overcome.
Well, meanwhile, France has been mourning a national treasure, the rock star Johnny Hallyday, who has died after a battle with lung cancer. Dubbed the French Elvis, Hallyday sold more than 110 million albums and was a superstar here in France, although his star didn't shine quite as brightly abroad. Julia Seeger has been hearing from fans of all ages. She takes a look back at Johnny Halliday's enduring appeal.
He was revered by all generations in France. For the elders, he'll be remembered as the singer who introduced US-style rock and roll to France in the 1960s.
I personally love this song, She Forgot Me. It's a mythical tune. It came out at the beginning of his career, but everyone remembers it.
But for the younger generation, however, he's the father of French pop, an incredible performer who held an important place in many French households.
I was brought up with his songs, my parents too, and even my daughters who are much younger. I think he was really someone. Today, the void is huge.
Part of Halliday's appeal through the generations was his fragility, well hidden behind a black-clad rocker image.
He had so much love in him. He was also a combative person, always seeking to give more to his fans through his songs. He suffered quite a lot in his life, but never gave up, and I think that's why people loved him so much.
Despite his superstar status, Hallyday was appreciated for his personality. His neighbors say he was humble and courteous.
We would say hi to him when we saw him. He would respond nicely. He was simple and very close to the people.
His popularity peaked by the end of his career, a self-made man whose appeal spanned all social classes. Until the end, his fans say he remained exactly what a superstar should be, a force of nature.
The US's Time magazine has named its most influential person of the year for 2017. But this year, there's a difference. The winner isn't really a person. Rodaba Abbas explains.
Honestly, I was furious.
I was afraid of the retaliation. I know the power of patriarchy.
Maybe if I just stand up, then someone else will stand up with me.
They are the voices that launched a movement. Their courageous decision to speak out sent shockwaves through Hollywood, but the impact is now being felt globally. Time magazine is honoring the silence breakers for its Person of the Year accolade.
Those are the group of women who all stepped forward this year to name their sexual harassers, to accuse people of abuse in the workplace.
It all started in October with an investigation by the New York Times and the New Yorker, which saw women coming forward to accuse disgraced movie mogul Harvey Weinstein of sexual harassment and rape. The wake of the scandal inspired a snowball effect, with people from different walks of life coming forward to name their abusers. This included men in US politics, media and entertainment, resulting in multiple dismissals and investigations. Social media was instrumental in powerfully highlighting the cause with the #MeToo hashtag. It has been used by millions of users in at least 85 countries to tweet about their experiences of assault.
What was important to us was to represent people who represented not only the Harvey Weinstein accusers, but also women from all over, from different industries.
The magazine's annual tradition traces its roots back to 1927 to recognize a person who has done the most to influence the events of the year, for better or for worse.
Georgia Calvin-Smith will be here in a minute with Eye on Africa, and I'll see you at the top of the hour.